Hello, fellow Star Wars fans. My name is Starrapter, and welcome to the channel. It's another week, and you know what that means? More Star Wars comics to talk about. This week in particular is literally like an avalanche of Star Wars comics. We have 4 of them to talk about. We have Bounty Hunters issue number 20, Star Wars issue number 20. We have the High Republic issue number 12, as well as Eye of the Storm issue number 1. So we are going to tackle all those today. But before we get started, if you enjoy me talking about Star Wars comics and, well, Star Wars in general, you're in the right place for that kind of content. Go ahead and subscribe to the channel and do a favor for me and hit that like button if you do like this video, because it will help others see it around the globe. So getting into it, we are going to talk about Bounty Hunters issue number 20 first of all. And before we get started, I usually show you guys the cover of the comic. Well, there was a mishap at my local comic shop, and well, we didn't get Star Wars issue number 20 or Bounty Hunters 20, but the good thing is we have something called Comixology, so I was able to read those digitally. And we're going to just dive right in. So Bounty Hunters issue number 20 is mainly centered around our Bounty Hunters crew, which is comprised of Bosk and the different characters, as well as Zuckuss. And, well, we have Zuckuss, who is going to try to find the character of 4LOM. And 4LOM will be able to slice the galactic internet and find the location of Cadelia, who is the key that is going to bind together the Mourner's Wail and the Unbroken Clan to create a bond of something that will go up against Crimson Dawn, which is coming back up from the ground. So that is the purpose. We go to this location, we find 4LM, who has been, as we know, reprogrammed to this big hulking spider-like creature, and it's up to our bounty hunter gang, including Tasu Leech, to take this guy down a peg and get his brain to connect with the internet of the Star Wars universe and get the location. And that they do. They get the location, but unfortunately, Dengar is able to receive that transmission as well from Deathstick, and now Dengar is going to be also hunting them at the same time. Remember, Crimson Dawn doesn't want Cadelia to be alive, because if she is, then she could pose a threat to the legitimacy of Crimson Dawn as the ultimate underworld force. We also have a Part B story, if you want to call it that, which does involve General Vakor. And this is the most, character development we've gotten from General Vakor, who, of course, is one of the underlings of the Unbroken Clan, although we've seen her frontmost and foremost, but we actually see her confront the leader of none other than the Unbroken Clan. And remember, she's got the support of Kira, and the Unbroken Clan have a base on Corellia. So it's pretty cool because you see that, the history of Vakor, she also used to be a street urchin like Kira, and she does end up assassinating this leader of the Unbroken Clan. So she's pretty ruthless in her aspirations, and she does accomplish her mission to kind of bring the Unbroken Clan completely and fully into the Crimson Dawn. So that's what we learned from this specific issue. It's pretty cool seeing that Dengar is working for the Crimson Dawn now. We see him with this character of Monaru, who he wanted to get from the Hutts. So it looks like Crimson Dawn gave him Monaru in return for working for them for the Crimson Dawn. So that was quite interesting. It is great to see that we're getting more editor's notes in these Star Wars comics, because that's been a minor complaint from the different fan groups around. It's like, hey, they keep making references, but not all of us have read these Star Wars comics, but want to learn more. So good thing for them to put in those editor's notes. Moving right along, we also have Star Wars issue number 20. This one's called Dangerous Lessons, and we have another Luke Skywalker-centric story. Last we left off, Luke Skywalker found a holocron and opened it up with the Force to get Yoda instructing him. So that's where we pick up with this. Yoda does give some information about vergences of the Force, such as, a temple underneath Coruscant and Jeddah, and he also mentions this other planet called the Gazian Sea. And a vergence of the Force is really where there's like a huge power they can draw with the Force through this area. So he goes to this Gazian Sea, and it's this very ethereal adventure that Luke goes on, because he goes into this thing and it's like a very different kind of sea, and he gets like absorbed into it, but then he passes out and he's in this other dimension where he's with Elzar Mann, and basically all these other Jedi that have gone to this planet kind of have a version of themselves retained as a ghost of some sort to kind of instruct others that go there. So basically this whole issue is about Elzar Mann from the High Republic, one of the coolest characters in the High Republic, mind you, teaching Luke Skywalker the way of the Force, history. He goes over the history of the High Republic era, about how it being a golden age, and 800 years before the golden age was the time of Darth Bane. So that was a really cool thing, and I have a separate video about that very topic, about, hey, Darth Bane, gotta mention an exact part of the timeline which lines up with his Legends appearance, so you can go check that that video out. But lots of cool stuff. And by the end of this, I think he does grow. I think Luke grows as a Jedi. And he also escapes this place with another journal. Remember, we had those adventures in the first volume of Star Wars where he had Ben's old journal. And now he has another journal. I don't even think that is exactly any kind of Star Wars. Right? That's not Arabesh. It's some kind of ancient runes of Jedi. So I'm very interested to see where that goes. But it was basically a vision quest. We also got to see a flashback of a young Stellan Avar and Elzar. So that was a lot of fun there. So getting into the comics that I actually did have in hand, we have first off the High Republic Adventures issue number 12. And this one is getting near the end of this run for IDW. Remember, IDW is going to have one final release of comics for Star Wars in February, then it's going to switch over to Dark Horse at some point. So this one is all about a new adventure that is going to be had. And there's a lot of this revolves around the character of Krix, which we've known from issue 1, kind of the adversary to Zine Morala. And now we have all these characters on Starlight, and they have to split off. You have Ram Jamaram. He's going to do some stuff on Corellia, which actually does fall in line with the book by Daniel Zayolder, Midnight Horizon. But then you have the rest of the crew that got an alert beacon that knows Krix's location. I was about to say Krix Nadine from, Star Wars Return of the Jedi, but I have to kind of stop myself from doing it every once in a while. They go to Dar Harhad, which is actually a reference to a location that we see in Dr. Aphra where all this destruction's over there. So it's cool getting that connection to seeing how that planet came to be with all that destruction of the ship. So we get to see everything that's going on there. And it's just a really, nails biting adventure. Turbo lasers going off, everything. You got the Jedi becoming one and really linking up Zine Morala, Lula Tal. So you see their connection through the Force. Zine Morala is a Force sensitive. She's not really a Jedi Padawan. She's just hanging out with the Jedi for now. And we see them take down Krix, and that's kind of where the issue leaves off for the most part. There's still some, unfinished business that's going to be dealt with in Star Wars: The High Republic Adventures issue number 13 out next month. But it was pretty cool to see such great action. Got Harvey Talabau, love that guy as far as an artist. I love how his colors just, the drawing, everything with his artwork is just awesome. And I hope that he's able to continue in the High Republic because I love what he's doing here. Obviously, Daniel Zolder is just doing amazing work with this character studies of all these different characters in, a comic that shouldn't be this good for this sort of age range, if I'm being honest, right? This is meant to be for the younger audience for the most part, but it's really got some claws in me as far as like making me care about these characters. So very, very good recommend for Star Wars: The High Republic Adventures issue number 12. And finally finishing things up for this week, we have Star Wars: The High Republic, The Eye of the Storm. So this is kind of like a two-parter, if you will. It's like a two-shot, I guess, because we still have the other issue. So this issue is all about building up the character of Marchion. This is all going to take place before The Fallen Star, which is the Wave 3 Phase 1 book that just came out. So you can read this without having finished The Fallen Star yet and not get spoiled by anything in there. Although Charles is saying that, hey, you want to read The Fallen Star before part 2, but that being said, let's get into this one. It's really a history about the alien species of his people called the Everini, and I like the way that this is set up, right? This is called like Act 1 row, but then you have Scene 1, the truth, you have Scene 2, the lie, and you have Scene 3, the kill. So the majority of this is built between Scene 1 and Scene 2. So Scene 1 is just the history, the truth of the people of Everini. They come from this planet Everon. It's very much like these people are caretakers of the planet. They are not hostile at all. They're just living off the land until one day a storm comes by and it just completely wrecks this place to the point where people start infighting against one another for resources. And then they actually try to, escape the planet because it becomes inhabitable. So they all escape the planet into space. They encounter other species. And then along the way, they become very ruthless, very vicious, and very, one-sided as far as like, hey, we want to just be ourselves and not help anybody else, and very isolated that way. Then Scene 2 actually gets into the story of Marchion Ro, of his father Asgar Ro, and of his grandmother, which we get introduced to, named Shallan. She invented the Nile. So that's really cool. We get to see how everything goes with Panetta, with the other characters that are the Tempest Runners. We get to see the Nile in their infancy. We get to see a young Marchion Ro that looks about 10 years old, because this story does take 20 years before the Great Disaster. So we see a younger Marchion Ro just as ruthless. He's meeting Mari Sinteca, so we get to see her, which is neat. That girl that's in the tube, the lady that's in the tube that has all the path readings fed out to the Nile, and we get to see how the paths look in real time in comic book form, because we have Marchion Ro that, you know, puts a wager, or Asgard Ro that puts a wager on getting the Pledge of Allegiance of the Nile to his cause, right? So he has his son as the bargaining ship going into space and using the path engine to get an advantage over these Nile ships. It's 1 versus like 50 ships, and Marchion is at the point where he's killing him so bad that Asgard has to have him stop before he just wipes out all the Nile. So we actually get to see Marchion as a skilled pilot, which is pretty neat. But we also see how ruthless Asgard is and how Asgard kills his own freaking mother. Like, that's crazy to me. So that's basically what happens in Seed 2. And Seed 3 is the kill, and that's when, you know, Marchion sees his father die, and his father wants him to kill him to finish him off. Now, I don't know. I don't remember if that's implied that he does finish off his father or not, because it says good boy. But this is about 10 years before the Light of the Jedi. And then at this point, you actually get to see Marchion Ro picking up the mantle after his father's death and sort of leading the Nile, knowing that these Tempest runners have to abide by Marchion Ro because he's the only one that can feed them the paths. So that's why he is able to control most of the Nile for the most part. So there you go. We had Star Wars issue number 20, we had Bounty Hunters issue number 20, we had the High Republic Adventures issue number 12, and we had the Eye of the Storm issue number 1. So what a week for Star Wars comics. Which one was your favorite? Let me know in the comment section down below. Lately, I've been talking a lot about the Book of Boba Fett, whether it be my breakout in-depth videos on certain things that happen in the episodes, or my reviews that are on the Outer Rim Transmission podcast, which we go live every Friday around 9 o'clock Eastern time, and we do put those up to download on all of our streaming podcast services like Spotify and Apple Music and Google Playlists or Google Music. So make sure you go ahead and check us out. Give us a download, give us a subscribe, and you can rate us on Spotify now as well. So look out for that content. Do subscribe to the channel and do hit that like button if you like this content. That's going to do it for me, Starrapter. Thank you so much for watching, and may the Force be with you always. Thanks for checking out the video. Please hit that thumbs up symbol. It helps me know that I'm making content that you guys enjoy. And if you enjoyed this video, I also included 2 videos down below you guys should check out. And please consider subscribing to this channel. It helps support me, and it notifies you guys of when I get new videos up on the channel. You can also contact me on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram at Starrapter.